Hi, everyone. This is Dawn Richard, also known as The Awakening with Dawn. And this is the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, where we share stories of struggles and triumphs in love, sex, and relationships, along with expert advice to create more conscious connections. I am really, really excited and honored to be here today with my new friend, Chris Parker. He is a man who has been through the ringer and on and off the mat, right, Chris?
That's right.
He's been through numerous life transformations, from being a high school champion wrestler, college dropout, drug dealer, an alcoholic, jiu-jitsu practitioner, kung fu and tai chi martial artist, college wrestler, a hopeless drunk, a recovered alcoholic, judo player, and now an advocate for strengthening the grappling martial arts community, probably in that order. You have been through a lot, Chris, in your young life. Welcome, Chris Parker.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm happy to be on the show, and I'm sure a lot of people have been through a lot more than I have, but that's just my story, you know?
Do you ever like wake up and go, thank God I'm still alive?
Just about every day. Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Yep.
Yeah, because you have scared yourself a few times, haven't you?
Yes, quite a few times.
You wanna start there?
Yeah, we could start there. Um, I mean, as far as the most scared times of my life is when when I started blacking out from drinking,
Uh-huh.
and waking up and not knowing what happened the night before,
Uh-huh.
and having my friends or family members kind of reiterate what I was like the night before. That was probably when I started getting scared, about as far as alcohol addiction. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's and then one particular time I woke up and one of the people downstairs, one of my roommates, we had 6 people living in a 2-bedroom townhouse, and one of my roommates came upstairs and they were like, "Dude, what happened to your car?" And I had that drop of fear, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't know what happened to my car. I don't know why you're asking me that. If you're asking me that, probably something bad, you know?"
Yeah,
So
what happened?
I go outside and like the front corner of like my 1994 Ford Explorer is like smashed up, and I was like, how in the hell did that happen? And I started replaying the night through my head, and it,
Mm-hmm.
it really felt like a dream that I had, when you wake up and you're like, oh, that was like a realistic dream, but it didn't feel like it really happened,
Uh-huh.
but it did. you know so you know things like that. I've woken up, in 3 different hospitals in 3 different states just from being blackout drunk. And you know one time the ambulance was called at a bar. Another time, like, uh my close friends, like, slash family members that I was staying with at the time, took me to the hospital. Another time I was on the job, drinking after work. I was managing a bar restaurant,
Uh-huh.
and somebody took me to the hospital, and like I woke up in these places and not knowing how I got there. There's IV in my arm, and I'm like, this has got to stop. It's just crazy.
Wow. Because you, a few years earlier, you had a completely different experience wrestling, right? How did
Absolutely.
you get from this champion wrestler to this, I don't know where in the hell I am?
Yeah, that's a great question, Don. I mean, in high school, I was very straight edged. I really listened to what my coach said
Uh-huh.
about, you know, who to hang around with. And, if you're in the wrong crowd, it's like crabs in a bucket. As soon as you try to climb out, they're going to latch onto you and pull you back in. So I really took his advice to heart and listened to what he said, and lived a very disciplined life, and went to class, did well in school, hardly ever went to parties. And yeah, my results was, I was a champion wrestler, in the state of Delaware. And when I got to what changed was when I got to college, I didn't have that same relationship with my coach, so I didn't really follow that. There was no like real moral guidance, or like life.
Like a strong mentor.
Yeah, exactly. Like a life coach. Because that's
Uh-huh.
my high school coach was like, he was like a father, an uncle, a grandfather, a brother, like a teacher, a life coach, like all kind of in one. And, both my parents are alcoholics. So, I wasn't getting that guidance at home that
Right.
I might have necessarily needed in life. And when I got to college, that wasn't there. And I found myself doing the things that my high school coach told me not to do, is like hanging out with the wrong crowd, like it was new to me. I went to Drexel in Philadelphia, and I mean, it was inner city Philadelphia, and I've come from, you know, Camden, Delaware, this little small town. And
Yeah.
a lot of people probably don't even know where Delaware is at. So, it's the
you
second smallest state in the country.
you went from
But
small town, big city.
yes, yes. So I got wrapped up into a lot of that, going to frat parties and just being in with the cool kids, and making social acceptance more important than, striving to do well in college classes, and having strong goals in wrestling to align with those things. And I found
Were
myself.
you were wrestling in college though?
Yes, I was.
So what were your teammates doing? Was this like the lifestyle of the teammates as well?
There was a small group that lived the good life, but the majority of them were just party animals.
Uh-huh.
It was a Division I school, but they figured out how to take easy majors, and they had a network of people that would help them with class and that would cover them when they went to class, so they could live this type of lifestyle and still keep up with their courses. Where
Wow.
I went into school double majoring in computer and electrical engineering
Oh my gosh.
on top of wrestling in Division I, and I didn't realize how extremely difficult that was.
Yeah,
And
wow.
the little bit I started to party, it just snowballed into, I'm so behind. I don't know what's going on. I'm lost in school. I'm I just felt like I couldn't catch up after like a week or two living that lifestyle. I was like, I just don't feel like I can catch up. And, so I lasted like a half a semester, and that was just trying to recoup my funds because I knew I was going to fail that semester.
Right.
And that's when I moved back to Delaware.
Wow. That was a big shock to your system, I'm sure.
It was. I mean, I took on more than I could handle, and no one was really around to guide me with that kind of, college and wrestling kind of direction. It was always kind of left. My parents kind of left me up to my own devices, and in high school it worked. I dreamed big. I set high goals for myself. I did what I needed to do, but it was because I had a mentor, a coach that
Yeah.
was helping me with that. But as soon as that I graduated and it didn't necessarily have that, my parents and my coach, they just encouraged me to go to college, but I wasn't prepared on what to expect and how difficult what I was going to try and do was. And I look back on it now. If I was going to double major in computer and electrical engineering, that's all I would have done. I wouldn't have
Right.
wrestled Division I. If I really wanted to wrestle Division I would have taken a much easier major,
Right.
at least to introduce me to that college environment, and then find my balance in it. So
So
yeah.
how did you go from blacking out and ending up in hospitals to picking yourself up? Like what was that turning point for you that you because you weren't really getting guidance from around you? So how did you do it for yourself?
It took a lot of desperation.
Mm,
I so badly wanted to succeed in life because my my accomplishments as a wrestling champion, I had like an extremely high standard, and I still do. And for me to fall so far in the opposite direction, it really destroyed my self-image and my confidence, and stripped me down to the bare minimums of who I was. And I had to rebuild myself uh, from nothing, basically, and from the inside out, one step at a time, because I got so I was like an introverted alcoholic. I didn't really like to go out to bars,
Hmm.
because I was just ashamed from getting so drunk and blacking out. I didn't want to be around people and allow people to see that side of me. So I would go to the store, pick up a six pack and maybe a pint, and go back home and just drink by myself, and um, play video games or something. And I became so comfortable in that environment that I started becoming very antisocial. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't like who I was becoming. I had a hard
Right.
time looking myself in the mirror. So it was really hard for me to begin that process, because for me to get help, I had to get around people who could help me, which meant I have to be around people again and have to start developing a relationship with other people when I didn't like the relationship I had with myself.
Yeah, I was going to
So
say you had to face people when you were having a hard time facing yourself.
yeah, yeah, and it was very difficult. And the what really drove me was this such desperation that I knew that the life I was living had to change. I knew I needed to get alcohol out of my life for good if I was ever going to live uh, happy and have the life that I really wanted.
Hmm.
So um, I had to find people that could help me, and the only people I could find was AA, or NA. They're both kind of have the same foundation, and
Right.
I was like, that's the only place I know where people are willing to help you, who have the same problems that you have, who have overcome them, and that don't drink anymore. And I need to know how to fucking do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can't imagine my life without it probably at that time, but your desperation is saying but there's got to be another way, a better way.
Yeah. So it's like these are the things that I have to do, not because I want to,
Yeah.
but because I don't want what I've been getting. It's just such uh, a depressing, self-pitying environment. I'm just miserable. I have no energy. I have very little ambition or inspiration in life, and it just, you know, uh, light years away from where I had been in wrestling. I got this self-confidence, high self-esteem. I have all this, healthy energy, and I just love people and myself, and like it was a far way to fall, but I was like, I wanna build myself back up to because I know what that feels like, and I was genuinely and truly happy at that time. So I was like, how do I get back there? It's like these are the things I have to start doing that are gonna make me uncomfortable, and
Hmm.
really talking about it with other people, and working through some of these difficult emotional problems. But anything's better than this,
Right.
because this is like, you know, borderline makes you want to commit suicide. It's like
Yeah.
I'd rather be dead than to live like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, how I actually have been to Al-Anon myself,
mhm.
and I know that one of the important things is being accountable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like this is the place where you have to face yourself and face your shadows and face your struggles and face your weaknesses and face your feelings of insecurity and self-doubt and all of that kind of stuff. So can you talk a little bit about your journey to find your way back dealing with all of those things?
Yeah. As far as accountability, it's so true. Like I knew that I was weak by myself,
Hmm.
and I had relapsed so many times trying by myself, reading self-help books, watching inspirational motivation YouTube channels, like just trying to overcome this issue of alcohol addiction on my own, and just having like periodical periods of success, like week or 2 weeks, or a couple months even. But I always kept uh relapsing and going back into that lifestyle, and I was like, what the f is my problem? I don't know why I keep wanting to go back when I know it's just a terrible thing, for my life and my soul. So I was like, these people at AA have figured out how to do it long term. And I was like, that's who I need to learn from, because that they have what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got there, they're just encouraging me to keep showing up at the meetings. And I didn't there's some of them I didn't like, I feel like, you know, um, they could have been run better, or there could have been stronger leadership, or healthier topics, and whatever. But I was like, if there's one thing I know, that most of these people in this room are living a sober life. And I was like, I have to keep doing that. I have to keep showing up, because I know when I'm here, I'm not at the liquor store or by myself at home wanting to go
Yeah.
to the liquor store. So
Yeah.
the accountability started coming in, where I was like, all right, I don't really like probably most of the people here, but they're keeping me from going down the path that I absolutely do not want to live anymore.
Right.
So that's where it started as far as accountability. And then, over time I found the stronger meetings where they had the more powerful leaders, and like the people that could speak from their heart and really uh, reach people like myself, and really help identify what the problem was in my life specifically. And then I just started growing from there. But yeah,
I
being
was, I was,
accountable to
I
show
was
up.
gonna say, when you were talking about it, it was like, the first meeting that you went to, it was like you were trying to create a new team for yourself,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then,
Absolutely.
and then the next one, you found a stronger team, people that you felt like could hold you up even and lift you up even higher.
Yep, you're absolutely right. It's there's certain people that you kind of click with
Hmm.
better than others.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes it's kind of like filtering through the different meetings to find those people, and then stay in constant contact with them. And you can be accountable to each other. And yeah, that's part of that process of you know finding creating a new team, like you said. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So in that process, how did that transform your relationships as opposed to when you were going through your darkness?
Oh, it completely reconfigured everybody I wanted to be around. Or because a lot of the friends that I've had, you know, um, kind of grew more towards the crowd that I was told in high school not to be a part of.
Right.
So when I realized that, all right, I don't want to be a part of this crowd anymore, I isolated myself, and I was like, I'd rather be by myself in this situation drinking than to be wrapped up in what they're doing drinking. So I took myself out of that environment. But then the next step was, like you were saying, it's like, okay, if I want to overcome this, what environment or what group of people can I get around? And one of the first things they say when you go into AA is like, you need to change your people, places, and things. You know, it's your environment. So the more I made friends with the people that could help me in life, the the better my relationships got with the people that I met outside of AA, because it was almost like I was becoming a magnet to the person I was growing into, and those I was attracting those people into my life that would support that growth process. So today I have phenomenal friends around me, and I'm so very thankful for that.
And a phenomenal relationship.
Absolutely. Yep.
Why
If I
don't
never got my shit together, she would not have liked me.
so why don't can you tell us about the difference between what you're creating with Lori now versus what you had tried to create with previous relationships?
Yeah. So a lot of the relationships in the past were more codependent. You know, we were
What do
getting
you mean by that?
we were getting fucked up together,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, they would um support me in that uh, role of wanting to do that, and I would support them in their role of wanting to do that, and we were
Oh.
both like enjoying our own misery together,
Uh,
you know. So
commiserating.
commiserating. I love it. That's exactly right. So I realized relationships like that only amplified the misery. So I was able, just like I was able to work out away from the group that was trying to take me to the bars or go to parties. I was like, all right, first step is I can't be in this environment anymore. So I realized I didn't have many relationships over my alcohol addiction period because, you know, I was just so unhappy with my own life. I just didn't have the heart to really bring anybody else into it.
Mhm.
Um, and when I did, it just amplified the misery. So I was like, you know, we really have to go different ways so I can work on myself and figure out what my problems are so I can better my life. So yeah, that led me to, you know, working on myself. And I remember my family, they're like, why don't you go, go out and meet girls? They just saw me miserable by myself. They're like, why don't you go out and meet somebody? I was like, because I'm a mess, you
Mhm.
know, and I know what type of person a mess is going to
To
attract because
attract.
I've
Yep.
done it. you know?
Yep. Yep. Like attracts like. Is that
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
absolutely. So I just knew I had, that if I was gonna find the woman that I really wanted, in my life and wanted to one day marry and, spend have as a life partner, um, that I needed to be the person that would attract that. So that's another thing that was super relevant for me, um, putting all the pieces back together in myself.
Right. So how do you relate differently to her?
Um, my gosh.
Where do I begin?
Yeah, yeah. When we first met, I mean, it was I had been living in Delaware and I got an opportunity after I was doing so much better in recovery and like my life is just coming together and growing as a person. Opportunities started coming my way, and I took this one job as a videographer in Delaware, and I was recording depositions, so they would always send me to either Philadelphia, Baltimore, or Washington, D.C. So I'm like commuting from the middle of Delaware to these cities, which with no traffic is 2 hours one way.
Right. A long
So
commute.
yeah, which I learned. I figured out I could turn my vehicle into a mobile university.
There you
So
go.
I found out how to make it work, and
Yeah.
eventually I moved over to Maryland with my uncle and started working in DC all the time. And that's where I met Lori, was on the job. She was a court reporter, and I'm videoing this deposition. She's, a stenographer, typing all the words everybody says. And when I met her, um, I was in such a powerful personal state, like I'm just so grateful and happy with the progress I've made and like where my life is going. And I've gotten out of Delaware. I feel like I'm moving forward. I love myself. And it's just like, it's almost like that energy within myself attracted someone like that who could appreciate me for me, because when I met her, she had that same thing going on. She's just like doing well in her life, loves herself, and like that like attracts like. And the ironic thing about it was when we met in DC, we never met before. It turns out that we graduated from the same high school in
That
Delaware.
that's crazy.
Yeah, just years apart, but we never met. It's just, yeah, absolutely nuts.
That's
So
such a small world. I mean, those synchronicities blow my mind, right?
yeah, yeah, it's like serendipity, man. So I was like, after we figured all that out and like we started speaking like, casually outside of work, and we just, grew together for the first maybe month or two. It was just all email interactions. We had only worked together like twice, I think. And we really took the time to get to know each other mentally and like really develop our relationship and through what we thought and, life experiences and stories. And it was just beautiful.
And were you actually, like, you were actually writing to each other a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. Email all the time.
I was gonna say, do you feel like that was almost an easier way to express your heart through writing?
I do because I'm more of an introvert and like I like to think through what I'm gonna say. Like I feel like I can express myself more truly sometimes with words
Uh-huh.
because I guess I haven't really had a lot of experience speaking. Like some people are just gifted with being able to say what they feel. Like for me, I almost have to figure out what I feel and
Yeah.
to be able to write it and then rewrite it and then send it,
Right.
and yeah, I mean, she was in a different state for a month after we got exchange emails. So like we couldn't even physically be around each other, but we're writing each other multiple times a day, you
Wow.
know? And yeah, it was just awesome.
I feel like that's one of the best ways to get to know somebody, because there's really no reason to filter anything,
Yeah. And we still do it
right?
to this day. We still do it.
So that, because I know, when you and I talked before, you said that you have always been a really sensitive person, and that,
Yes.
you used to wear your heart on your sleeve, and that, when you were going through all of these difficult experiences, it was like you shut down your own heart.
Hmm.
So how did you rediscover your heart?
Wow, that's a great question. It was it was by taking steps in a direction where I would begin caring about myself again. So to really, my heart was broken because the lack of love I had for myself,
Hmm.
you know. So to rekindle that my heart and the love in it and to really wear it on my sleeve again and find my strength in it, I had to find my strength in myself and like those little steps where once again like going to the meetings and just kind of acts of gratitude and just daily practice and making small steps forward. Like I had a long list of legal things I had to make amends for, like go back and
Yeah.
solve. So it's like relationships I may have soured. um, I just going back and doing what I could to make the most out of the situation that's already taken place, and doing it with a caring, loving heart is what made it begin to grow again. Because I found love for myself, and through those actions of love.
Do you think, are because a lot of guys have a hard time talking about their heart. It's like this whole, I got to be tough, I got to be strong, I'm masculine, I'm a man. Um, and yet, there's this, for me, my perspective and my opinion, when you show up as a man in your vulnerability, in your authenticity, showing, like exposing your heart, that to me is real strength.
Absolutely, Dawn. Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you that I found that out early in high school through wrestling. And I'll tell you how. Where the guy had to wrestle in the state finals. He was ranked number one in the country, and
Uh-huh.
he just walk around the tournaments with his chest sticking out, like just super ego. And we're in the parade of champions. So parade of champions is like the first and the second place person, like the two people who are gonna fight in the finals or wrestle in the finals
Right.
who haven't wrestled yet. The people behind them are the people who got third and fourth, fifth and sixth, and they're all like patting me on the back. They're like, kick this guy's fucking ass, like, because everybody liked me because I wore my heart on my sleeve. I love people. I talked to people. I didn't, if I beat somebody, I didn't act like an asshole. You
Yeah.
know, I helped them up with a hand, and like people really gravitated towards that and rallied around me to beat this like giant of an opponent. You know, it's like a David Goliath type of situation. And
Ego, ego, ego,
yeah,
ego.
they were like everybody just wanted someone to take his ego out, you know,
Yeah.
and they rallied behind me because, you know, I believe because of my heart, and I ended up beating that guy, and you know, I just felt just so loved and supported through that process. And you know, they would come up to me and they're like, yeah, see, heart overcomes, you know, like, you know, so it just felt good. I knew that early on in life because of that, you know, kind of experience.
Uh-huh.
That was true.
And so then, during your struggles, that's sort of when you basically broke your own heart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so coming back to pick up the pieces of your own broken heart so that you can come as a whole, like you were talking about learning how to love and accept yourself, because we're not really taught that. A lot of people aren't really taught that growing up, are they?
No, they're not.
Why not? And what can we do about it?
I think because the education system is more logically based,
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't cater to emotions. It caters to the logic side of the human uh, being. And it's like math and English and science. And you know, that's why I love wrestling so much, or like sports, because that's our opportunity where emotions get involved and we can refine those. And my wrestling coach always said that wrestling was the purest sport because it revealed your true character. Is like the hard work you put in is the hard work that you get out, you know. It's like
Right.
there's nobody else out there with you, you know. We're all there to support you, but in life, it's just you. Even
It's
though you
just
have a
you.
family and friends behind you, when it comes down to it in that fight, the only one that's there is you and the problem that you're facing, you know. So, I mean, he taught us about emotions, you know, and how to harness them for positive energy, you know, how to, you know, have upstanding character and principles, and, you know, how to use other people's, you know, who are haters and things like that, you know, to use that as fuel for your fire. And, you know, you just keep your eyes forward and your, your head up, and you know, just do the best you can, and then positively affect the people around you. And like that's where I got the best teaching on how to bring out my heart, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so challenged in
Mm-hmm.
sports. You're challenged emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I know in school you're challenged mentally, and it might be stress and pressure to study and things, but you know, really challenging your heart, and that's a different type of thing, you know. So I think if we can encourage more athleticism, particularly the one-on-one sports. It doesn't have to be wrestling, but tennis is a beautiful sport. Swimming, it's like you versus the elements, but it's just you. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
those type of sports really bring out the character within you because you have nowhere to hide. There's nobody you can hide behind. It's you versus yourself, and you know, it's it breaks you down to the most bare part of who you are, and that's where you're able to know who you are and build on that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know who you are, how can you create the person you want to be from it?
Well, and I think because I'm all my kids are athletes, so I get that, but I'm a dancer, and so that was like my individual sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love
um,
dancing.
but for some people who aren't athletically inclined, I think the concepts are the same. It's like you have to figure out like what speaks to you and what helps you become the person that you want to be,
Absolutely,
right?
I
And
agree with
so
that.
it's really facing yourself and and finding what honors your heart and honors your soul, like where it's going to propel you to what vision you have for your life. And I feel like, you know, a lot of times, and you can talk about this, you know, that people who end up um, using drugs and alcohol and, you know, various forms of um, diversionary tactics, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you're not willing to face who you are, because you're not really liking who you are. And so how do you help people come back to this place of, you know, I got to be okay with who I am, you know, and I have a vision for my life so that I can draw people around me that I want, you know, like I can draw my team, you know, I can
Mm.
create the team that I want. I can create the partnership that I want because I'm becoming who I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right on, like really finding your passion and what drives you in your heart. I mean, that's not something that I feel like was encouraged how I grew up in school,
Uh-huh.
but it's always been the direction of go to school, get a good education, get a good job, retire. But you know what, we live in America is the land of opportunity, like entrepreneurship. And it's like, how come people aren't being inspired to create their own business or company in what they love? Because I
Right.
think that's more true to the heart, you
Right.
know? So there's a lot of theories, maybe conspiracy, ideas on why that's created to be like that model.
Uh-huh.
But what I think would help is some kind of transition, uh, whether it's school or just guidance from taking something that you figure out that you're passionate about and love, and how do I apply that in life? Like even this stuff like in wrestling that I learned, it's like, okay, I've learned all these awesome lessons, and now how do I apply that in life? It's just the next step just seems to be school, like more school. And in a way, if you're not ready for it, it's like brainwashing you into a system that you're molded to be an employee of, which has never been my idea of freedom,
Yeah.
so it's it's almost like a prison for my mind and my heart, because I
Uh-huh.
feel like it's a box that we're being kind of directed towards. And
Based on other people's expectations of
yeah,
maybe who they think you should be.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, not enough self-discovery in our school systems in that process of growing up.
So
Yep.
how has all of this self-discovery and self-love and opening your heart to possibilities changed your life and changed your relationships?
uh I mean, it's uh it's opened my eyes to more possibilities, not being restricted, that I think that the only way I can make it is going to college and working for somebody, and relying on that company to take care of me long term.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been to college 4 times. I've only completed 1 semester, so uh, I most of that was from alcohol
Yeah,
addiction.
yeah, yeah.
But the other part of it is like they weren't teaching me what I really wanted to know. Maybe I just didn't find the right path, or you know, um, it's really, if I can make any recommendation, if you don't know what you want to do in life, I don't think necessarily going to college right out of school is the way to go, because you're starting to amass debt, and you're being forced in a direction that you may not be happy with. And before you make that long-term commitment, which is what it is, when you by the end of it, you have most of the people have debt, and then they're forced to get a job in this field that they find out they might not enjoy.
Hmm.
So, if anything, man, after you graduate, take that time to do some self-discovery, whatever you feel inspired to do, expose yourself to different things, go hike a mountain, go on a cross country journey on a motorcycle. I don't know, whatever you want to
Yeah.
do that you think would help you find out what you really care about in life, and then start coming up with ideas on how you can create something to support that vision,
Uh-huh.
and then maybe come back to the education side and say, okay, where can I go to learn about how to do this,
Uh-huh.
you know?
And how about the role of having a mentor in your life?
Oh, it's phenomenally important because I mean, so many people today that I've met in life have come from broken families. So ideally, um, it always makes me smile and almost tear to hear someone say that their dad is their hero,
Wow.
or they just love their parents because because um, I don't know that, but and I think that,
Because you've had a hard time with your parents.
yeah, yeah, still do. And I think I'm not alone, by far. I
No,
think
you're definitely not alone.
there's a lot of people like that. So mentorship is super important in life because, there's people, you know, who have done what you're trying to do that can help you along the path, because they
Mhm.
have the experience and, the fact that they're coming back to help. And it's part of the process of life and fulfillment. It's going on a journey and having this experience, and what's next is turning around and helping other people on that path.
Mhm.
That's been my experience and what gives me the most joy. Like, my experience in wrestling, like, I love helping kids develop in wrestling. I really do.
Mhm.
And it gives them joy because I can see them getting better, and that makes them happier. And uh, they're learning, you know, how to do something they love, and it gives me joy to see that come out of them. So anything in life like that, find a mentor in what you're trying to do. Someone who's been there. It'll save yourself a lot of mis- mistakes. I mean, mistakes are good, but if you can learn from other people's experiences, you're gonna exponentially grow. It's gonna
Well,
be a much quicker process.
and I feel like just as you were talking about it, it's like you're being the dad to them that they never had.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I felt about my coach. You
That's
know,
like a beautiful gift that you are giving people, Chris.
but thank you. I mean, that's why I created the Grappling Reel podcast, was to unite the grappling arts community of wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and judo, which I later
Uh-huh.
got involved with, and to create that support group like an AA, but for grapplers, because I've seen a lot of high-level grapplers that do so well and have the same life experience where they get to college and just fall off the cliff,
Uh-huh.
and some of them aren't even here anymore. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's one of the primary uh, motivations behind creating that community is to have that place where people can find mentors
Hmm.
and or tell their story and give back, and share some insight that might help other coaches or athletes along the way to
Hmm.
create a stronger community between us.
Hmm. And I just wanted, based on our conversation, our last conversation, just to say that I really honor you of how you're dealing with your own parents right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, I can. Um, so my mom, she's her and I have actually grown closer together over the
Hmm.
years. Like, my mom and dad split up somewhere around 10,
Hmm.
and I chose to end up living with my mom.
Hmm.
So growing up, in my adolescent years, I lived with my mom, and my brother ended up living with my dad. So we almost got cross neglected in a sense, where my mom didn't talk to my brother a whole lot, my dad didn't talk to me a whole lot. So you know, it was tougher early on with my mom because we grew up in the same household, and I saw firsthand a lot of the problems. And at that time, I was more verbal of, you know, pointing out her faults and, you know, the things I didn't like. And, I was probably not the most respectful in the way I said it. And I hurt her feelings and she hurt my feelings. And so we, for years, grew apart until, probably within the last few years, the better I've done in life, uh, the more I've been able to accept her for who she is and my dad
Mhm.
for who he is.
Mhm.
And I've opened that door to let their relationship grow, and I reach out from time to time. But she's actually been more stronger source of coming back and developing some kind of relationship. My father, he's he's I think gonna be 61 this year, and I mean he rides the bus every day, hasn't had a license in over a decade, and he just refuses to change. Like it's hard to be around him because one minute we're hanging out and then he'll disappear and come back and be completely drunk, and it reminds me of a lot of pain, and it it's saddening to be around. So I can't really be around him too much because
Mhm.
he wants a relationship, but he doesn't know how to have one because he
Mhm.
doesn't have one with himself.
Right.
So he's very difficult to really speak to, because you never know when he's sober, when he's not. And, you know, anything you might develop kind of disappears rather quickly. And, so I leave the door open and he calls me every once in a while, but our conversations are kind of shallow in the sense that we don't have anything to talk about. I mean, he asks me about what I'm doing. I tell him, he's like, "Oh, that's good." And then it's blank, there's no, I could ask him about his life and I have, but it's always the same answer.
Yeah.
So,
Because he hasn't really faced himself either.
yeah, you're right. He has a relationship where he's being enabled to live that life. And,
Mhm.
as long as that exists, he probably won't change. So I talked to her about it in the past about Al-Anon, and I was like, I love my father, but you make things too comfortable for him, and as long as he's got that nest and that comfort zone, he's not going to change.
Mhm.
Like the best thing that probably could happen is for you to move on with your life. And I told her that, and she's I don't know if she's in denial or just doesn't really consider what I'm saying, or but over the years they've been together for, I don't know, 8 years or something. Like when he moved in with her, she's seen now more realistically what he's like at home, because before she'd come over, as soon as she would leave, he would go to the liquor store,
Right.
come back and get toasted. So I would always be around for the worst part of that experience where he hid it from her, but
Right.
now she sees it firsthand. So whether or not she'll ever get to the point where she moves on, I don't know. Because he plays the self-pity card and like kind of makes her feel bad and guilty, like, oh well, then what am I gonna do? Like, I don't know, man. You've created your life, the life that you have. It's up
Yeah.
to you to figure that out.
Yeah.
So she's susceptible to that, and he uses that, and so I don't know if it will ever change. I hope it does. I really do. My dad actually has a beautiful heart, and that's where I get mine from.
Yeah.
So I remember that early on. It's just, I'm 36 now, and I remember that growing up. I mean, he was just, loving, caring guy. And just over the course of years, 5 DUIs or whatever, it's just gotten progressively worse. I've never seen a real effort to get better. Like in my life, it got worse, and then I would try to make it better, and then I'd mess up and it'd get worse, and I try to make, so it's like periodical ups and downs where I feel like it's just been kind of a constant slow down. So until he hits some kind of adversity where he's forced to deal with it, I
Mhm.
don't think he may never will. So that's kind of my relationship with them right now, and I'm excited.
I'm sure that's really hard for you to see your dad especially stuck, because you were at that place where you were stuck and you figured out a way to get out and reclaim your heart.
Yeah, absolutely, Don. And my dad and I lived together, for a year or two in an apartment. And while I was going to AA, like he actually went with me once or twice. And he did it because he wanted me to go, but
Uh-huh.
he never wanted to go for
For
himself.
himself, yeah. And
So
you have to do it for yourself.
yeah, yeah. So like it was frustrating during that time when I was struggling the most and we lived together. And I after I got off work, I couldn't come home because I knew I would go home to, you know, that life. And so I would have to, that's one of the reasons I went to a meeting every night. So when I got home, he was asleep and I
Yeah,
didn't have to see that every day and see him destroy himself like that when I'm trying to do better and I'm fighting through it and working through that adversity to overcome and figure it out.
right.
It would have made me so happy to be able to do that together, as a father and son, but I just had to accept that it just had to be me because I had to do it for myself. And if he wasn't going to come, that can't stop me from doing it myself.
Right. I mean, it's so strange, I think, that you are who you are because of the parents you had,
Yeah.
because of, the great experiences and the shit experiences that you went through. And here you are, this, I told you the first time I talked to you, like, I feel your heart. You have a huge, huge heart, and you are creating this beautiful life for yourself. And I just like, I just wanted to honor you so much because you come with your heart. You give your heart wherever you show up, and it's the most like masculine and strong and vulnerable and beautiful thing. And I know that this woman that you're with, she is really, really lucky to have such an amazing man in her life.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. I actually feel like the the lucky one, but I'm sure she would appreciate that.
Yeah. So, you have learned to face yourself. You have learned what it means to not love yourself and figure out how to come to a place of love for yourself and for, the people that you want to surround yourself with. So, the last question that I like to ask people that I talk to is, what is your definition of real love? Because this is what this is all about for me. What is real love to you?
Wow, what a great question. Um, real, real love, I think, is being able to look in the mirror and be 100% happy with who you are and who you're becoming.
Mm,
And by that definition, you're gonna affect and empower everybody around you,
including yourself.
including yourself. It starts with you. Yeah.
Including yourself. You become your biggest champion.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. It the word you, it just came to me. It's like it starts with Y, but it ends with you. I feel like that could be a slogan somewhere.
That's perfect. It starts with why and then ends with you. That's awesome, Chris. I'm so thankful that you came here with me today. It's been such an honor to talk to you. And for the listeners out there, if they want to get in touch with you, find out more about your coaching programs and your, he's going for gold pretty soon, people. How can people find you, Chris?
It's I have a podcast called Grappling Reel, REAL. It's on iTunes, Spotify. I have a fan page, Grappling Reel, and Instagram at Grappling Reel. And you can email me, grapplingreel@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
All right, great. Okay, so from my side, if you like what you heard today, please subscribe and share with your friends. And if you would like support in finding more connection, expansion, fulfillment, heart, vulnerability in your own life and in your relationships, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Awakening with Dawn. And feel free to send me a message. My website is under construction. It's coming real soon. And obviously, you can find me here at the podcast. And I'd be happy to help you find and create more real love in your life. And this is just what we were talking about, Chris. My slogan, my mantra, my motto, whatever that I'm going to say forever and ever is the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself, so that you can be the kind of partner that you want to have.
I love it.
So thank you so much for being here, Chris. You're welcome back anytime. And next time, bring your woman.
I will. Thank you. It's my pleasure, Dawn. And I love you for this, what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So thanks, listeners. And tune in next time. We'll be back soon. You guys take care and wake up to real love.
See ya.
Bye.